All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. I am Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. My guest, as always, our partner, not a guest. He's a permanent fixture here on this program. Sal Maiorana has put up with me for 2 years now, going into our third season of
longer than that, pal.
Of the Rochester.
Putting up with you for almost 30 years.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Flanked in that media rooms through a lot more thin than thick. Right. But though in recent years in the Josh Allen era, that's changed. But I mean, through the playoff drought and all of that, you and I we've seen a lot. Bills fans have seen a lot. And there's a lot they've yet to see. And that's this team actually getting back to the Super Bowl for the first time since the early 90s and the glory days back then under Marv Levy and Jim Kelly and that whole crew. And it's been too long of a wait, right? There's a lot of expectation unfulfilled at the highest level in the Josh Allen era. So we've got a whole new look this year with Joe Brady at the helm as head coach. No more Sean McDermott. A lot to digest and a lot to get ready for as training camp fast approaches, isn't there?
Yeah, there sure is. We're basically a week away from them showing. Well, the rookies have already reported to One Bills Drive. They'll be there for a little bit more than a week. And then everything happens here, next Wednesday, I guess, is the first date. So we're into it, man, Wednesday or Thursday, whatever that date is. But, yeah, it's close. So let's rip through this defense and let people know where they stand as they come to Fisher here.
Right. I mean, this show will complement a lot of what you're doing in the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, your ongoing series. We did the offense last week, top issues facing the offense, top questions we'll do on the defensive side and this particular show. And just quickly before we get started, that mirrors exactly what you're doing in the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep.
All right, so series of stories, series of topics. We're going to hit on many of them here. And you can also get Believe in Bills embedded in each one of Sal's stories. So there's a lot of ways to access the show. Wanted to let you know that. But without further ado, this is a team, I think the sort of the banner headline on our last show, Great Expectations. And that comes as a surprise to no one. A lot of that has to do with the offense and Josh Allen. But FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show and others here in the Believe network of podcasts. Let's just get a sense of, I want to use this graphic here. Let's just get a sense of what the expectations are. Here's FanDuel sort of up to the minute. Over 8.5 wins, Bills at -400, under 8.5 plus 310, over 9.5 -210, under 9.5 plus 175, over 10.5 wins -125, under 10.5 wins plus 105. And really the expectation, FanDuel has that bar set if you're looking to bet the over-under at 10.5 wins at this point. So, Sal, as we kind of take a look at that, that falls in line. I mean, they are right behind the Rams in terms of Super Bowl favorites. How do those numbers sit with you based on what we know about this team and maybe more importantly, what we don't right now?
Yeah, I mean, 10.5, that's – Bills fans aren't going to want to hear that because that means it's 10 or 11 wins. You're straddling the line there, and that doesn't look great given what the Bills have done these last few years. Even last year, not winning the division, they were 12-5. So that 10.5 is a little bit of a scary number. I would tend to say the Bills will be over. I think I'm settling, Adam, on 11-6. I think I had 12-5 when the schedule first came out, which of course we all know is stupid to do, but we're required to do it. I think I've come down a bit. I think the more I think about it and look at the schedule, I think 11-6. So I guess that would put me in the over category, but man, that's not money that I want to give up because I think it's going to be a tenuous bet this year for the Bills or on the Bills.
And there's a lot of reasons behind that. I mean, number one, you've got a new head coach in Joe Brady, and we addressed that to a great extent in our previous show on the offensive side, former offensive coordinator. There's a reason he was promoted. They want as much continuity as possible on the offensive side. The relationship with Josh Allen established as Brady is former offensive coordinator now. Allen, of course, one of the elite quarterbacks, if not the best one in the National Football League right now. We kind of know and can expect a certain level of production on the offensive side. I think the biggest question as to whether or not where they're going to be in terms of the over-under we just talked about or how much of a Super Bowl contender this team is truly going to be lies on the defensive side. where you've got Sean McDermott is now in the history books. You've got a new defensive coordinator in Jim Leonhard, and how quickly this team can adapt to this scheme with the personnel they've added, and more importantly, with the personnel they already have on the roster, right, is going to say a lot. And he was pretty open about it. I mean, it's more than one off season. They've made this change. It takes, at least, in my opinion, a couple of drafts and a couple of free agent cycles for them to really get this set from a personnel perspective the way they want. Yeah. Right? I mean, I think that's fair. At the very least, that time frame, right? Not to take anyone off the hook, but that's just a natural part of coaching transition in the National Football League.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna happen overnight for this Bills defense. I'm not expecting them to come out this year, Adam, and all of a sudden be, the Ravens from 2000 or something. It's going to take time. They've got an entirely new scheme, and they've got a lot of new players. I mean, let's face it, a lot of young players too. Not so much all new, but a lot of young guys that they're relying on, guys they drafted last year, guys that they drafted this year who are probably going to get immediate playing time. They've brought in some free agents. It's going to be a lot of moving parts in training camp. And he said, I mean, as far back as February, when he had his first press conference, Jim Leonhard said the defense this year is probably not what it's going to be in next year or the year after. It's going to take time to build it and get everyone on the same page. So, yeah, it feels like a season, Adam, where the Bills better be scoring 30 points a game the way they've been scoring for the last 5 or 6 years, because I think this defense will have some growing pains. Now, there's a chance that they come out and they're really good, and if they are as aggressive as he's claiming they're going to be, maybe that leads to more impactful plays, turnovers, sacks that lead to, punts or whatever, things that were lacking with the Bills defense last year. Maybe that will be the biggest improvement we see, but do I think the Bills are going to be dominating teams on defense this year? No, I think it's going to take a little bit to get this thing all put together. All
right. So let's talk about how these parts are sort of coming together as, again, we're basically a week away from training camp right now. And a lot of these points that we talk about here are going to be focused on during the course of the preseason and obviously into the regular season as the Bills work this transition. I think we have to start up front in terms of pass rush. I mean, if you look at the biggest area where there have been shortcomings, right, under Sean McDermott, and where it's ultimately failed them when it's mattered most in the postseason, they have to do a better job of getting to the quarterback on a more consistent basis. I mean, you have a lot to discuss there, right? The addition of Bradley Chubb, who's obviously familiar and been successful in this particular scheme. You have what it's going to mean in the 3-4 for an Ed Oliver, for example. How can he be more consistent and impactful? And to me, one of the most fascinating aspects of this is how is a player like Greg Rousseau, who's now going to have to be effectively an outside linebacker in terms of a traditional defensive edge rusher in a 4-3, right? I mean, there are nuances to this and the degree to which he's going to have to make an adjustment. And there's a lot of things that Leonhard can do to mitigate that. But I think that's one of the more fascinating aspects of this. A guy like that, who they really need to be more impactful on a more consistent basis, how does he make that transition at this stage of his career? There's a lot to digest and analyze up front as we look at this particular issue.
Yeah. Look, they brought in Chubb because he's played in this defense before. He just played there. He played it in Denver when he first came into the league, played it with the Dolphins last year. I looked up the numbers at him. Because people are wondering, okay, they're technically called outside linebackers, but these are not traditional outside linebackers like you would see in a 4-3 who are going to be dropping into coverage, playing the run. The Bills' outside linebackers, meaning Chubb, Rousseau, T.J. Parker, Michael Hoyt, maybe Mike Dana if he makes the team, these guys are going to be rushing the passer, Adam. Last year, Bradley Chubb in this defense for Miami, on the pass snaps that he was on the field for, he rushed the passer 85% of the time. Rousseau in a 4-3 last year rushed 93% of the time. That's not going to change because they're in this 3-4 defense. Those guys are going after the quarterback. It's going to be what you do up front with the other three guys. Like, maybe they're probably not going to have 3 interior linemen on the field for passing downs, right? They're going to have 4, the 2 outside linebackers, 2 guys inside, and they're going to play nickel or dime behind it. And then the difference is going to be Leonhard is probably going to blitz more than Sean McDermott ever did. So it'll be a 4-man front, but they might bring 5 or 6 It'll depend on what they want to do. Is it going to be a linebacker? Is it going to be a safety? It'll be a corner blitz maybe. That's where they're going to change how they rush the passer. So it's going to be, again, there's a lot of moving parts here. Guys have not played this style of defense before. I will be interested to see how it impacts Ed Oliver. They keep telling us, and they've told us since they drafted him in 2019, he's an upfield penetrating defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. He has been at times, but I think in Sean McDermott's defense, he probably couldn't excel the way he probably thinks he could have when he first came into the league. Maybe this style of defense will turn him loose and really make him a terror. I mean, he was a terror for the 3 games he played last year. Maybe he builds on that, and this thing really unlocks him. But you mentioned Rousseau. He's the guy that I'm hoping this is going to unlock. Because, look, Adam, he's been here for 5 years. He's been a good player. A late first-round pick. It wasn't a high first-round pick. He was a late first-round pick. He's been a good representative player for them. He's gotten paid now. But I still say that the impact is it's waning, right? He makes enough plays the run well, sets the edge. I need him to be more of a dominant type of player. And you hope that this will change things, the way they're going to play this style of defense.
Okay, so, it's obviously complementary football. How many times have we heard that from Sean McDermott? Complementary defense. I mean, in order, the pass rush obviously becomes much more effective if things hold up in the secondary, right? And receivers are covered for a longer period of time. I think there are some pretty legitimate questions, particularly at the number 2 cornerback spot. If you're asking me for a particular area, a focal point on the defensive side in training camp, I mean, I think watching Max Hairston and Davison Igbinosun, who they drafted this year. Corner depth was a priority for Brandon Beane in the draft. He made no bones about that, particularly the way they've come up short at key moments. Go back to the Denver game. There are examples of that. But I mean, how much of a question mark do you have in terms of the cornerback position? I mean, and how effective they have in terms of how effective they're going to be in terms of the players they have at that position is a question. And then what they have behind them is another one.
And look, the 2 moves that I felt were screaming to be made in the offseason were a veteran linebacker like Shaq Thompson came right to the forefront. I mean, I'm not, we'll get to linebacker in a second, but I'm not overly sold on their depth at linebacker. I thought that needed to be made. And I think a veteran corner, that was almost a no-brainer on my list. Like, he did this last year when he brought Tre'Davious White back, and he ended up starting all 18 games that he played. He missed the opener. He started all 18 games. This team lacks in veteran corners. They have Christian Benford on one side, and then what do they have? Max Hairston played half a season as a rookie last year. We're not quite sure what he is yet. Davison Igbinosun, their 2nd-round pick, rookie, we don't know. There's no other really legitimate depth on the team. I mean, you look at it, take D. Alford out of it. He's their nickel corner. You've got the way I'm looking at this, Adam, the depth they have behind Hairston and Igbinosun is Jordan Hancock, who is either going to be a safety or a nickel corner. You've got Jalen Kilgore, who's a 5th-round pick this year, and a 7th-rounder in Toriano Pride. That's basically your boundary depth right now. I mean, who else are you turning to? There's really nobody else. That to me is a problem. Here's the thing, Adam. Everyone wants to rush the passer, and they try to load up and find edge rushers. The Bills made the move to get TJ Parker. They drafted him first. I thought they should have drafted a linebacker. They drafted a pass rushing edge rusher, basically. Last year, Adam, look this up on Pro Football Focus because I'm writing about it actually right now. 24 quarterbacks in the league who dropped back at least 400 times last year. They got rid of the ball in 3 seconds or less. That's generally, it's like 2.6 is great. Yeah. And I guess between 2.6 and 2.8, 2.9 is ideal. Not surprisingly, Adam, 11 of the top 12 guys who got sacked the fewest percentage-wise were guys that got rid of it in under 3 seconds. My point here is it is harder and harder in today's NFL to sack the quarterback because these teams have gone to get the ball out quick. All you got to do is look at Josh Allen and the wide receiver screens, right? I mean, we see it in Buffalo. They're trying to get the ball out of his hand. The only times that he gets sacked, Adam, is when he runs around when nobody's open, because that was an issue last year, right? Getting guys open. You've got to cover in this league. And right now, I am highly concerned about the Bills' situation. Maybe Max Hairston will have a breakthrough. They loved him when they picked him in the first round, right? Fast guy. He was pretty physical for his size. Maybe he's just going to shut me right up and just step right in and, beat Tre'Davious White in 2017, right? Immediately a good player. And then Igbinosun will get his opportunities. But I look at this team coming to training camp and I see a lot of youth at a very important position, cornerback.
What about safety? Obviously it goes back to Hyde and Poyer and how much stability they've had at that position. It's taken Cole Bishop a while. It's been a slow, injury-riddled transition, an inconsistency-ridden transition for him. There's a lot more expected of him as a former second-round pick, right? And they brought in some veteran depth. How much, for lack of no pun intended, a safety net type situation? How, in your opinion, have they addressed that position, and how stable are they there? If we're going to evaluate the secondary, that has to be part of the discussion.
Yeah, look, I think they're better at safety this year. Look, Taylor Rapp was kind of a disaster before he got hurt and missed the rest of the season. They really had nobody else at safety last year. Cole Bishop came on, luckily, and ended up being a really good player for them, but they've upgraded. CJ Gardner-Johnson is better than any other safety they had on the team last year. I think he's going to be a good addition for them. Everyone's talking about how he's a wild card and all this stuff. The guy can play. The guy has played for winning teams. He's won a Super Bowl. The guy knows how to play in the NFL. I think he'll be a good addition. We talk about Leonhard wanting to be aggressive. That's a chess piece that he's going to have. He can use CJ Gardner-Johnson in a lot of different ways. He can use him in the slot. If they've got a fast guy in the slot, you take or you got a big guy in the slot, like a tight end or something. You take D. Alford off the field and put Gardner-Johnson in the slot. Then you can bring in maybe Geno Stone, who's a veteran guy they brought in. There's a lot of different things he can do at safety. I feel much better about their safety situation than I do their corner situation.
And that would leave linebacker, right? And I think the biggest question there, can Terrell Bernard stay healthy and perform at a consistent level? Obviously, he's been through a lot on that front. Last year would be a very good example of the adversity that he'd faced. And Dorian Williams, how ready is he going to be dealing with an injury as well? How set do you think they are at the linebacker position?
Hey, as I've said, and I said it earlier on this show, I thought they should have picked an off-ball linebacker with their first pick in the second round. I told you many times my man crush was Jacob Rodriguez, and we goes to the Dolphins.
I agreed with you at the time. Yeah, he
goes 8 picks later to the Dolphins. There was 5 guys between the TJ Parker pick and the end of the second round. Actually, before it was this pick 60, 5 off-ball linebackers got chosen right in that window. Bills didn't take any of them. They waited till the 5th round to pick Caleb Elam-Zoer, which, okay, we'll see. But it felt to me at the time, look, TJ Parker might end up being a really good player, but I felt they were pretty good at outside linebacker edge rusher with Rousseau, Chubb, Hoyt. They got Dana after. Even Javon Solomon, I think, could be a better player in this defense. They were pretty good at that spot. It felt like it was screaming off-ball linebacker. So they're going to go into the season with Terrell Bernard, who needs to prove he can stay healthy. And, we've talked about this before. He had a great 2023, his first year as a starter. He took a step back in 24, and because of the injury, he took a big step back in 25. So he needs to regain some of his mojo, man. He just hasn't been, the player he was in 23. So that has to happen. Dorian Williams, he's as inconsistent a player as they come. He flashes. He's such a great athlete. He's a physical kid. You love him against the run because he can go downhill and hit people. But if he's going to be on the field a lot, you got to cover. And that's his biggest problem is his coverage ability. So you've got 2 guys that I'm a little iffy on. And then what do you have behind him, Adam? Right. You've got a rookie 5th round pick who he could end up being a steal. It could be Khalil Shakir was a 5th-round pick. Maybe he's that guy, but then you got Joe Andreessen. You've got Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, who has been a special teamer his whole career. Keontae Jenkins, that's your depth. I mean, what are we doing here? You have one injury. What the hell are they doing? I think it's a problem area. And I'm not going to be convinced until it doesn't happen that Shaq Thompson won't be back on this team. I think sometime this summer, especially if they have an injury.
Right.
I think he's the first.
Almost. I mean, you can stop. I'll stop. You can almost predict it, right? At that, yeah. I mean, they're a good. It's a guaranteed injury league, but at that particular position or whatever, I mean, you're going to have a hamstring, right, or whatever. I mean, some more veteran assurance at that spot, I think, would be a very good idea.
Yeah, and they always seem to make a move in training camp, right? There's always something that, oh wow, look at that. You know, they signed a veteran guy who ends up being with them for most of the season. If Thompson remains on the free agent market, I'm saying it right here. I think he's going to end up in Buffalo before the season starts. Matt Milano, people have raised the question about Matt Milano. I think that ship has sailed. I think the moment, Adam, when they cut his contract short, right, and released him out of what would have been his last year this year, I think that was a decision that was made. Maybe that was McDermott too, but Bean was on board with that. He's the one who he negotiated that, basically that buyout or whatever you want to call it. I don't think they're going to turn back to Milano, mainly because of the injury history. I mean, he has not been reliable, and you're going to need a body. You're going to need a guy who can play. Maybe I think Shaq Thompson's the better bet, but we'll see. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm not going to be surprised if it does.
All right, one final point here before we wrap this up, because I think it kind of bears zooming out a little bit here. We've talked about the key positions and all of that. This is the biggest risk area in the decision to move on from Sean McDermott, right?
Right.
I mean, obviously, defensive-minded head coach. You're changing the entire philosophy from the top down. You've got a new defensive coordinator in Jim Leonhard, all the things we have talked about. Now, that's the unknown. And I know you've talked to a lot of people around the league, as have I. I mean, toward the end and after that Denver game, especially, and even before that, McDermott's defense, in terms of opposing offensive coordinators, I mean, it had become pretty predictable.
Yep.
Right? They knew kind of what he was going to do. And obviously the points that they surrendered on the defensive side speak to that. So beyond whatever dynamic was taking place at the top between McDermott, Bean, Pagula, all of that, I mean, there is rationale for making this move and changing things from a philosophical standpoint. We've heard about them being more aggressive. I know it's an unknown, but I think people would be interested in hearing from you. What's the kind of the identity or the personality of this defense? What are you expecting them trying to execute? Now, whether they can execute it as well as they need to, that's been the focus of our discussion today, and that's a big question. But what are they trying to do that's going to be different? What are fans going to be able to see different from what took place under McDermott, in your opinion?
I think it's pretty clear that they're going to be. I mean, Bean made this point when we were talking to him in his office. I was up there, a couple other guys I think were there too, and he was saying that one of the things they kept hearing in their discussions with scouts or whatever is that the Bills were predictable. Everyone knew that they were going to be in a nickel defense 4-2-5, right? You knew Gardner-Johnson was going to be on the field. You knew their edge rushers were probably going to be on the same side of the field, right? They preferred having them rush from a specific side. They hardly ever flipped them. They did a little bit, but not like most teams. Those guys were pretty much, you're the right end, you're the left end, go get them. This is going to be the different thing with Jim Leonhard. He has talked about, we are going to be a multiple front. We're going to be changing things up. I don't think you're going to see Rousseau pinned to one side of the field. I think we are going to move around a little bit, and you're not going to know who, for instance, who the nickel corner is going to be. I said it earlier. They're not going to be using D. Alford the way they used Gardner-Johnson. They're going to be interchangeable. You might see Jordan Hancock in the slot. Depending on the matchup, you might see Gardner-Johnson go down. Hell, even Geno Stone could be part of that. I think they're going to be very, very different in that the opposing offense is not going to be able to look at film and say, okay, we know that Taron Johnson's covering our slot guy. These two guys are going to be on this side of the field. We know who their boundary guys are. When they pull a linebacker off the field, we know who's going in. It's going to be, I think that's going to be the most exciting thing about this defense, Adam, is it will be so much more different and multiple than what Sean did. And, the argument that McDermott always made, we want to get our 11 guys on. They play together. They know every move each other is going to make, that continuity piece. And that there's something to be said about that, right? These guys can play that defense in their sleep. But as we said, you start looking at the tape after 9 years and you start learning how to attack that defense, especially in the playoffs when teams are scouting 10 times more specifically for a playoff game than they would be a week 8 game. It's just the way it is. So I think that's the most exciting aspect of what Jim Leonhard's going to bring to this team.
It's fascinating. It really is. I mean, if you're into the National Football League and into the X and O's, right, the All-22 and all of that, I mean, this is fascinating stuff, what they're going to do and how quickly they can. So teams aren't going to know what to expect, right? It's going to be a much bigger question mark from an opposing offensive coordinator standpoint, and how well the Bills are able to execute that new scheme.
And that's the key point. They're going to have to execute it.
Right.
That's going to be the key point. We can talk all we want about multiplicity and different looks and all that. Now you got to get them on the same page. McDermott's defense, no matter how many different guys they brought in during the season, they learned that scheme and they were typically on the same page. That'll be a little bit of a different thing because it's going to take a little while for these guys to get on the same chapter, let alone the same page, I think.
All right. So that sets the stage tremendously. In the meantime, your vacation days are winding down, my friend. And I know you're spending a lot of them. You're coming out with these stories, which are going to shift now. I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday Tuesday afternoon at roughly 3:00. So starting for the rest of this week, you're going to have aspects of the defensive side covered in the DNC. Is that pretty much right up until the opening of training camp next week?
It's going to take us real close. I mean, there's 5 more to go. So, I'm doing a story on the cornerback situation, Cole Bishop and the safeties. I did a piece on the outside linebackers, the edge rushers. TJ Parker was kind of the focus there. I haven't gotten to the defensive line, the interior line part yet. And there's one other one too. I forget what it is, but I've lost my train of thought, but there's 5 more to go. Oh, the linebackers, the inside linebackers, led by Bernard and Williams. So covering all the aspects of the team as we get to training camp. And then it'll all get blown up, Adam. Everything I've written will probably get blown up in the first 3 days when 3 guys get hurt and, everything goes to hell like it always does in training camp.
All right. Well, this is our last edition of Believe in Bills until training camp opens. Next time we come at you will be on the 29th, following their first session on the field over at Fisher. So we thank everyone for listening and watching on YouTube. If however you access this particular show, it's going to start ramping up in a big way, along with what happens with the team as training camp and the preseason will officially be getting underway. So Sal, pleasure as always, man. Appreciate it.
And, Adam, if they miss me so much, they have Pinstripe people they can turn to now.
That's right. Yes.
So we're doing that show regularly with after every series, Mike Lindsley and I. So Pinstripe people right here on the Believe Network. If you're a Yankees fan, I think you're going to get the same bubbly personality that you get right here at Believe in Bills and Believe in Sabres. Actually, you get more swear words on that one because that team pisses me right off.
Well, I glanced at my Twitter feed, and I just kind of scrolled through it before we started. And one of your tweets popped up and it just said, I just read quickly, loathsome Red Sox.
Oh, Adam, they're ruining my summer. They're literally ruining my summer with this 14-game winning streak. So, I swear to God, I get more joy out of a Red Sox loss than I do a Yankees win. That's how crazy I am. Really, I think I get more joy out of the Red Sox losing. And I haven't had that joy since I think July 1st is the last time they lost a game.
Yeah, well, you're talking to a product of, I've been in Buffalo
I know.
since 90, but I'm a product of Southeastern Massachusetts way back in the day. I mean, 4th grade, Bucky, dent into the screen and the 1-game playoff and all of that. So, I mean, I have like emotional scars from early childhood from what the Yankees did to them back then.
Good.
The Red Sox
Good,
have
you deserve
exacted
it.
some, but I think that adds to the chemistry here on the show, don't you?
Probably,
Almost like
yes.
subconsciously.
Yes, exactly. Buffalo
All right.
guy and a Boston guy.
All right. So, Pinstripe People, also on the Believe network of podcasts, new, along with Mike Lindsley, Sal Maiorana, Rochester, DNC. I am Adam Benigni, WGRZ TV, and Sports Talk Live Buffalo, which will resume. It's on hiatus right now, so that we and the crew can get some vacation in as well before things get rolling again. We're back, obviously, at the beginning of the Buffalo Bills season on Channel 2 Monday nights at 7 o'clock, Sports Talk Live. So for Sal Maiorana, I'm Adam Benigni. Thanks for being with us here on Believe in Bills, presented by FanDuel. We'll talk to you next week as the Bills officially report to training camp and hit the field at St. John Fisher.